Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to talk about optics. And one of the ones that always seems to come up is which Cold War optic is the most like the VLK, because obviously they have a 2 times, 4 times, 6 times, 1 to 10 times, 2 to 20 times, and then various little different multipliers in the mix. So I thought I'd take a look at that and also talk a little bit about if any help actually with recoil control or recoil stabilization, and give you guys kind of an idea around that. Another thing we'll go ahead and talk about is how to get a blue dot on your Cold War reticles. It's not exactly a blue dot, it's more like blue dots. So we'll talk a little bit about how you can fit that into the mix, because currently, if you look at the reticles, it doesn't really appear as though that option is available. So if you enjoyed the video or learned something new, please do me a favor, hit that like button. If you're brand new, looking to find your way back for more Call of Duty content, double check to make sure you are subscribed with notifications on. It's currently looking about 60% of you out there watch but haven't yet clicked subscribe. So the different optics we're primarily looking at today are the 3X, the 2X, the 4X, the 6X, the Hangman, the Vulture, as well as the base Tundra, and this ultra zoom optic that is only available on sniper rifles, and kind of see how that compares to the VLK and what is actually the closest, because the 3X doesn't really look like a VLK and a lot of people have been asking me about it. So what I did to test this out is I actually went into Plunder and I ADS'd this specific lock with all the optics that I was talking about. And then pretty much what I did is I took a screenshot, and then I took another screenshot, and another screenshot, and another one, and another one, all the way through all the various optics. And then what I can do is use that as a reference point to compare them, measure the individual pixels, and then compare them and kind of get a good idea on how much these opticals change. So with these various optics, this is how big a little lock was. So obviously the larger this box is, the bigger the optical zoom. So if we go ahead and look at this orange one that I have on my hand, you can kind of see how big the comparison is as we go through. Obviously, if it fits inside the box, it has less optical zoom. If it covers the other box, it has actual greater zoom than the other one that we're looking at. So you can go ahead and go through that manually if you wanted like that. But what is a little bit more practical is to put it into a spreadsheet and measure pixels, carry the difference. I also looked at the HDR 5.5 zoom with the variable zoom and the 12.6, so I can use all three of those numbers to kind of make a reference point to which optics are closer to which based off the number of pixels. So here's all of them for you. Here's the specific optics that we looked at with the specific zoom. We got the 10 Vulture, that's a maximum zoom. And then we have the Vulture and the ultra zoom with the 1X all the way over here. And what I did is I measured the pixels of that lock with the VLK, standing from the same spot with all of these individual ones, and it was 23 pixels wide. So in reality, the closest thing we can get was 22 pixels, which is the ultra zoom, which is only available on sniper rifles. So that's not really practical as an optic. And then we have the Cold War 2X, which is 20 pixels. And that's within region here. And this ends up being, if we counting the VLK as a 3X, then this is like more of like a 2.6x if we're looking at the Cold War 2X. So if we look at the Cold War 3X, it's really like a 4.4x that we're used to with the VLK zoom. And then I did the same thing, kind of grading against the HDR, which had the 5.5, the 12.6. This is kind of where it ends up being kind of an average if you kind of combine all these different numbers. So you can kind of see what these zooms actually are. So the ultra zoom, when you're comparing it to the VLK, is actually giving you 41 times optical zoom based off how much it's zooming in. The 10 ends up being about 18. So you can see it kind of scales as the number gets bigger. It kind of almost doubles the actual magnitude of whatever it says here. So even if we went with the 4 times, it's only about a half, 1.5 times more. Looking at the Tundra, it's a default is a 6 times multiple, or almost 7 if you kind of factor it in with the other optics, because none of the optics are true to scale. Even if we look at the HDR one, which is also a modern warfare weapon, those particular magnifications don't align with the VLK, which is supposed to be a 3X. So that's just something there. When you actually look at this, if you're looking for something that's going to give you very close to this, it's either going to be the Cold War 2X, which gets you pretty close. It's about a 3X compared to a 3.4. Or the 3X, which is a lot more magnification, about a 5.1 magnification, which is almost too much magnification. And sometimes that's why it feels like the gun is a little bit off, even though you have the extra optical zoom. Keeping in mind that the holographic side is a 1.6. So this ends up being a happy medium between like a basic one. A 20 is still good. Cold War 2X, probably a lot closer to the VLK than the actual 3X is. So kind of can use that there, take your screenshots, whatever, but that gives you an idea of what will make sense based off your preferences, switching from Modern Warfare optics to Cold War 1. So one thing we did find out about Cold War guns over about halfway through the game's life cycle is that some of these optics actually add a little bit of stability. VLK is one of those that tends to add that stability factor pretty much to most guns. Some guns it just doesn't help enough, so it's not really going to be noticeable. There are a couple other ones in here in the mix, keeping in mind that the more magnification usually comes with a penalty in terms of ADS speed as well. So there's always these trade-offs that are happening in the background that you got to kind of make a decision you don't really know about. You kind of got to go based off feel. If it feels too slow, then probably something's happening, right? So what I noticed is when I went through and tested the different optics for the Cold War guns is I wasn't really seeing these patterns. Sometimes I'd fire it with the 2X, no different. Sometimes it'd be a little bit more, sometimes a little bit less. But overall, there wasn't a consistent pattern where one of these optics was giving a significant improvement to your overall recoil pattern for multiple weapons. Obviously, in one case, it'd be like, hey, you know what? It looks like it's helping out there. You try it with another weapon. All right, cool. It doesn't look like it's helping out at all. Next one, okay, it helps a little bit, maybe. But the problem with the idle sways of these weapons in Cold War, it's usually too high, so you're not going to really notice that difference. Now we'll go ahead and talk about the thing that ends up being pretty popular, which I mentioned, is the blue dot. People grind out the blue dot for holographic. It was what the sweaty people were running. The high skill players were grinding it out, trying to get this individual reticle because it's just very clean as an optic. And this goes back multiple Call of Duty titles. It's not just Modern Warfare became popular. People used to get these in supply drops and be like, yes, I finally got the blue dot. Make a whole video about the blue dot, right? So before I explain how to get the blue dot, I will preface it by saying that I don't feel like it's as good as the Modern Warfare blue dot, and the standard reticles for Cold War end up being as good as the blue dot in this particular case. So I wouldn't go out of your way to get this blue dot, but if you really want it, I'm going to go ahead and explain how you do get that. So pretty much what you have to do is go to the Cold War list, go to all your Black Ops Cold War, and then what you'll do is go to the AK-47. You're going to go into the store, and they have these various blueprints. And I bought it so I can actually try it out to see how useful it is. You're going to go in here, and there's going to be one of these blueprints. It's 1,500 COD points, way overpriced, because obviously you're getting a blueprint that you're probably never going to use. I'm not going to use the AK-47. This gun's pretty bad in terms of recoil. Goes up, down, and then right, up, left. Like, it's terrible. You're going to get this specific blueprint and the list of items with it. As a result of that, you end up being able to put the blue dot on various optics. So you can go to Vision Tech, go over here. At the end, you can see this triple blue dot where the one in the center is the big, and then it's two small ones, and it's a very clean, good sight picture in terms of no clutter in the actual reticle. And this works for pretty much all the regular low zoom optics. So this is like 4X and below, I believe. So if I go to 4X, the reticle, it'll still be there, and it's going to unlock for all the weapons. You don't got to do any challenges for it. So basically, you're spending the 1,500 for a reticle, which is way overpriced. Definitely not worth it unless you just really, care about getting it. But if you go to like a vulture zoom, you can't even change the optics on that or the reticle, so it wouldn't necessarily be worth it. So now we have a better idea of which optic works in. So personally, I'll probably be using this blue dot with the 2X. I just got to find out what weapon I really want to use from Cold War that needs an optic, because usually the ones I like using have very clean iron sights, and they're used for close to medium range where the optic really isn't needed, and I'll combine them with like a sniper kind of combo. At least that's the meta I prefer. Obviously, everyone's using DMR right now until that gets nerfed, and then we'll kind of see how things balance out, because most people aren't even using anything else, so how will we know how the meta pans out? Hopefully you guys did enjoy the video, learned something new. If you did, please do me a favor, hit that like button if you're brand new, want to find your way back. Double check, make sure you subscribe with notifications on. Appreciate all the support on the channel. Thank you for watching. As always, have a great day.